So what don't you know about Microsoft Teams? We're going to learn how, start working, and move forward. Overview includes introductions, structure of Teams, using security within Teams, chat and post, they're not the same thing, core apps, using mobile Teams. I've got a couple resources, some next steps, and then we'll have time for Q&A. So as far as who is presenting, Joni Short's a consultant with TurtleWorks. She's going to help to keep me on track. And she'll be fielding any questions. If you got questions that come to mind, just put them in the chat window and we'll deal with all of those at the end. So I've left 10 minutes at the end to go through questions. Just go through and make sure that any duplicate questions are just answered. All right, so let's dive into structure. So we don't want to just create teams and channels within Microsoft Teams willy-nilly. Organic growth turns into sprawl. Then it becomes hard to find stuff. You know, I know organizations where they actually turn off the ability for people to create teams because of that fact. And you have to go through an approval process to actually get your team created. So when to create a team, when to create a channel, and we'll talk about an organization-wide team, what it is and how to use it. Okay, so structure. There's really three aspects to a team. There's the team itself, there's channels within the team, and then within a channel we have apps or applications or tabs. Sort of use. The big thing about teams is we want to slow adding teams. We want to add them gradually. We don't want to create a lot of teams. So before adding a new team, see if you can add a channel to an existing team to solve that problem, to find a place to collaborate. People, users, should belong to the least number of teams possible. So by creating few teams, that's one way you solve that problem. By introducing more channels within a team, that's another way you solve that problem. Whenever you create a team, there's a general channel that's automatically created. Use that general channel. Use it for onboarding people into that team. So take advantage of the wiki, use that to explain to them what the team is for, the different channels and why they would go to various channels. Maybe if there are some procedures or things they need to know about interacting within that team, you can put it there in the general channel. So you've got a place in the general channel by default for files, for posts, and a wiki. So take advantage of that.
Joe, are you supposed to be sharing a slide?
I am. This is why Joni is on the call. All right, there we go. Okay, so types of teams. We have, often we create a department team, and that's fair. That's a really good use of a team. We can use projects, but many times those projects can fit in a department. So create a channel instead of a team. If the project is cross-organizational or if it spans multiple departments, then that's where you would create a team for it. And then you could create a team for a topic, but I think that's a rare event, so be very careful if you're going to create a team for a topic. Most likely you can create a channel for that topic. And as far as channels are concerned, again, the general channel is there. Take advantage of it for onboarding people into the team. And maybe you don't need other channels, so maybe everything fits within the general channel. Use channels to subgroup a team. So if you create a finance department team, then most likely you'll have accounts receivable as a channel, accounts payable as a channel, and you can create budget as a channel or forecast. Security related to channels, Microsoft recently introduced a private channel. So whenever you create a team, you add members to that team, and when you create channels within that team, all of the members that are introduced to the team automatically have access to any channels you create. So the channel inherits those team members unless you create a private team. In that case, you have to select who from the team members has access to that private channel. And then finally, within a channel, we have apps. So by default, you get the post app. So that's instant messaging, fairly rich instant messaging. You have files, so a place to store files related to whatever topic, department, whatever it is you're collaborating on. The wiki's automatically created. Sometimes I find wikis like, why do I have that? Why can't I delete it? But I've really discovered the value of using that wiki as an onboarding tool. And then finally, we have a whole bunch of Microsoft provided apps that you can add, or there's a bunch of third-party apps that you can add as well. So some of the common apps that we add are Notebook Planner, Whiteboard, and you see the rest of the list there. So here's a sort of a outline of what your structure or a good structure would look like. So here's the OrgWide team with just the general channel. Here's the finance team with those particular channels that we talked about. The HR team with general policy handbook. Those are probably, we'll say, not private or public channels, but then harassment cases, that's something that would probably be a private channel. Only a few people with HR department would have access. Here's new construction. So if you're creating some new office space, that's probably cross-departmental. So that would be a reason to create a team for that, even though it doesn't fit within a department. And then here's a layout of how you could leverage apps within particular teams and channels. So for the accounts receivable channel, there's the 3 out of the box apps, but you can add OneNote, the notebook, which seems like would be very handy for tracking. You know, you make a phone call to somebody who's behind on payment, you track what's going on. You could do that in a OneNote notebook. And then perhaps you have a list of people you need to collect from, whether that's a spreadsheet that you're getting out of your ERP once a week, or if you're using a SharePoint list to just keep track of those things, however you do that, but it seems like that would make sense. And then here's the payroll channel, which is private, and that would have a salary list. So that, again, that's sort of for a few eyes only, not for everyone in the finance department. So I talked about an OrgWide team, and why do we have that OrgWide team? It is a great place for onboarding people into the organization itself. So it's a perfect place to put announcements for the company, common information or applications or files that everybody in the company needs to get to. A good OrgWide team is moderated. That means only a few people can add content to it. So it's restricted. Not anyone can go in and create a new channel. Not anyone can go in and create a new post and start a conversation. So it's very locked down to keep it on point, to keep it focused for people who are going there to get information primarily. An OrgWide team has dynamic team membership. What that means is you don't have to do any work when you hire new people or people leave. As soon as they get added to your Office 365 tenant, they automatically have access to that OrgWide team. And when you deactivate their account because they've left the company, they're automatically removed so they don't have access to the team. So a nice feature. Good place for a company calendar. And most of the time you don't need to get past the general channel. It's okay if you do get past the general channel, but many times you don't need to. So I'm going to demonstrate building an OrgWide team from scratch and Microsoft Teams itself. So I see Ron Burnham. Hi, Ron. So let's go here and let me get this over here. So, okay. So to build a team, it's as simple as going down here in the lower left, join or create a team. So we're going to create a team. We click create a team and we're going to build it from scratch. We get 3 options. Well, it's pretty easy. OrgWide Team is the option we want. And it gives, by default, the name of the company because it knows it's an OrgWide team. So we're going to call this webinar 1, and you can give it a description. Great place for onboarding people to the company. And we create that. So we see the new team is created, the general channel is created, we're not done. So at this point, it is not a moderated team. At this point, there's a couple other things that we want to change. So we go to a team, these 3 dots are known as ellipses. We go to the ellipses, manage the team, and owners are the people who have permission to add content. Well, we don't want anyone but Joni and myself to be able to add content. So I'm going to toggle these 3 accounts and make them members. All right, so that's step 1. And if we go to settings and we look at member permissions, right now, any member can go and create a new channel and do some other things we don't want them to do. So we're going to remove all of these checks except for the last 2. The last 2 allow anyone who replies to a post to be able to delete their reply or to edit their reply. And there's one final step under @mentions. So if somebody is replying to a post and they do like @team or @channel, everyone is basically going to get spammed. Everyone in the organization is going to get spammed about what they did. So we don't want that to happen. So we tick those off. And that's really it. So at this point, we have an org-wide team, we have the general channel, and there's some things we want to do in there from a configuration perspective now, not from a security perspective. So you're probably familiar with using posts and chat. You just go down here and start typing. But if you click on this A for formatting, by default, it's a conversation. You can change it to an announcement. So now it looks like an announcement, and we can do something like new org-wide team rolled out. We get a subheading. And welcome to the whatever. And we post that. And now you'll see it's an announcement, and it looks a little different than a standard kind of chat experience. The wiki, I like to rename this to something that makes more sense. So I usually call it common. And then within here, I'll put, and I'm going to show this later on when we get into core apps, I'll put in links to common applications and common information and whatnot. So we'll see how I do that later on. And then finally, some common files. So, you know, what's the topic of choice? You have 2 going on right now that a lot of people are talking about. So we'll go to there and we'll add some so to add a file, it's as simple as just taking File Explorer and dragging a file over. And there you have it. Okay, and let's go back to the presentation. The next thing I want to do is build a department team. So I'm going to build a finance team, and that's going to get into a little more nitty-gritty of private channels and a few other things. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, we just go down here. We're going to do build from scratch. Now in this case, I want to choose a private team because people have to have permission to enter the finance team. We don't want anyone in the organization to go find it and enter. So we make it a private team, and we'll call it Finance Webinar 2. We can put a description in there, and we go ahead and create the team. And I'm going to add Joni. And I'm going to add Susie. So now both of these people are members in the team. They have access to any public channel of that team. It's that simple to create a team. And I'm guessing a lot of you have already done that kind of work. So here we have the finance team. We've got the general channel. Let me scroll down and expand that so you can see better. We have the general channel with posts, files, and wiki. We're going to do a couple things though. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to come over here. It's still actually creating the team. That's why I'm getting this error message right now. So we'll take a minute and we'll add a notebook. Well, I can't even do that. We'll do a Power BI thing. So while it's spinning up, I can't play with the notebook or fool with the files. But so accounts receivable, maybe you'd like to see who owes you money. So I have something I wrote using Power BI and QuickBooks that does just that. So you can integrate Power BI within Microsoft Teams. Here is a report showing accounts receivables with a nice funnel based on how behind they are. So if I click on 60 to 90 days out, I can see that I need to give Robert Allard a phone call and say, hey, what's going on? Let's see if I can get back to files now. This should be ready. Yes, it's ready. Perfect. I'm going to drag some files in there. So we have the ability between Teams and your local file system to synchronize files. So if you are disconnected from the internet, you can work with files locally, and then the next time you're connected, they'll sync back up. So there's 4 files I've added. You'll see this button right here that says sync. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And this is going to leverage the sync client. I'm going to click Start Synchronization. And if everything works right, I should get a pop-up. Not getting a pop-up. We're going to let that sit for a minute. So there might be a delay over the internet at this point. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it actually did the job. So here is that finance webinar. No, that's actually an old one. My bad. Normally it has a pop-up and you can get to the file. So these are all folders that are either coming out of SharePoint or coming out of Teams that are synchronizing back and forth. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it worked. I'm not sure why I didn't get a pop-up. Normally you get a pop-up saying it's synchronizing with the folder, but there it is, it succeeded. So you'll see there's a green check mark on each of these file names. If I go ahead and rename this to YYY, you'll see the green check mark went away. If you had really good eyes there, you could see 2 little arrows chasing each other. And now it turned back to green check mark, meaning that it's updated Teams. So if we look here, it still says XXX until I click refresh, and now it says YYY. So handy way to work with files when you're disconnected, and then it's able to sync back up in the future. So we've got the Power BI piece, we've got files, and the only thing we need to do yet is to add a private channel for payroll. And so right here we select private, click next, and now it's going to ask who. So right now the Finance WB2 team has 3 people that are members. I am only going to add Joni. I'm an owner, so I'm added automatically. Joni has access, but Susie does not. And you'll see that channel has a little padlock next to it, so you know that it's private. Okay, let me do this. And this. So if you're using SharePoint already, SharePoint Online already, then please talk to me before you start doing things in Teams. If you do things with intentionality and with an understanding of how Teams and SharePoint work together, you have a very nice integrated experience in Teams, and all Teams is doing is surfacing what you already have built in SharePoint. If you just start creating Teams on your own and you already have SharePoint content, you're basically creating 2 distinct systems. You can cobble them together, but that's what it is. It's cobbling together. So it's not hard to do it the right way, but you need to do it with intention and understanding stuff. So please just reach out to me and we can talk through that. So using security, there's a difference between external users and guests. We're going to look at switching tenants, and we're going to add a guest to a team so that you can chat with that team member. So high level external users, they're easy, they're on by default, so you don't need to do anything to get external users to work. Guests are governed, so it's not turned on by default, but if you want somebody from the outside, say a customer or a vendor or one of your partners, to have access to Teams within your tenant, then you have to go into the administrative tool for Teams and turn that access on. So that's the big difference, is guest users have access to Teams, external users don't. External users have chat, but it's a basic chat. Anytime you create a meeting and invite somebody from the outside, they're created as an external user. External users can't be blocked individually, but you can block their entire organization. You can't share files with external users, and to create an external user is pretty easy. So just invite them to a meeting, and you can chat with them from the outside. Guests, like I said, they have access to Teams and channels they are members of. They can't see anything else. They have the full-blown chat experience, so the rich chat. They can collaborate and share files. And creating a guest user, you just add the outside user as a member to a team. It's really that simple after you've made the change in Teams administration. As far as guest users are concerned, so if you're a guest of someone else's team, you can't see that team when you're in your tenant. You have to switch to their tenant. So, and I'll just show you how that's done. Let me grab Teams and bring it over here. Okay, so you see right here where it says TurtleWorks LLC, that means that I'm in my own tenant. I'm looking at my own set of teams. I'm in my own Office 365 experience. If I click on that, you see that I have access to a couple other tenants. So these are either partners or vendors or whatever. I can't switch or I'll knock everyone out of the meeting, so I'm not going to do that. That would be bad. A great way to deal with that problem is to actually go to the browser and go to teams.microsoft.com and log into the tenant there. So you can keep your tenant running in the desktop application for Teams, and you can have your partner or customer's tenant in the browser. So that's a great way to make that work. Okay, let me see where we are at. Got that. Okay, so chats versus posts, chatting with customers, vendors, and partners, and history and artifacts related to meetings. Well, I'm going to talk about those next. So these two pictures kind of sum up well the difference between chats and posts. Chats are at a general level, so they're really at the highest level of Microsoft Teams. They're unrelated to a team or a channel, or I strongly recommend that any chat at that level is unrelated to a team or a channel. It's for general conversation, and it's the place where you can find history and artifacts for meetings. Posts are constrained. That's why I put these folks on a fence. So they're in a fenced-in area related to that particular channel. So what that does, if you constrain your instant messaging to a channel level, that means all the communication related to that topic or department is in one spot. So you don't have to go look at the high level chat. You don't have to look in a channel. You just know to go in the channel and find it there. So it's a great way to encapsulate all of the information related to a topic in a channel. That gives you then the files, the notes, the wiki, and all of the interaction from a communication perspective. Posts will also keep track of any changes to a channel. So if you add a new tab, you schedule a meeting, things like that, those will show up as posts within the channel as well. So it's not just two people or a group of people talking back and forth. Okay, so chatting with customers, vendors, and partners. To make this work, they must at least have a free Teams account. Otherwise, you can't really work with them because they're not in Teams. So chatting is done at that level. Posting, they need to be a guest within a team. And I'm going to take a minute to go ahead and chat with a customer and show you how that works. So let's bring this up. And we created this finance, and I'm just going to go to general. And I'm sorry, I'm going to go finance and manage team, and I'm going to add a member, and I'm going to add this Torgone, and they're added as a guest. So that's a different role than a member. Permissions are similar, but it's not quite the same thing. And now if I go down here, we'll see that Torgone is in fact a guest, and I should be able to go here, and there it is. So Torgone is just a Gmail account, right? So it's a user created with a Gmail account, so they're not using an Office 365 subscription. They're just, out there using something else. They get an email saying, hey, you've been added to the team, and if you want to open up that team, let's go there and open Teams. I'm going to open it in the browser. I don't want to hijack my existing desktop application. Again, here's an example of how we can use the browser. So here there's a nice big button that says use the web app instead. Sometimes they tuck it down in a little link that you got to look for, but in either case, whenever the browser prompts you, there's always a way for you to get in there and use the browser. So now I have access to that WB, the Finance WB2 team, the general channel. This is the stuff that we built, 5-10 minutes ago. I have access to all of that. If, well, I don't have access to the Power BI report, but I have access to the files. If I wanted to do some chatting, whatever, I can do that here. And should be, yep. and I got some activity, right? So and there we go. So there's how you can start instant messaging with a customer or vendor. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. All right, let's move on. So I talked about also meeting history and artifacts. So if you have a meeting and you're doing some chatting while you're having the meeting, if you're recording the meeting, all of those things, that all appears within chat. So here you'll see I've clicked on chat. I get down to this admin automation requirements meeting, and all of the artifacts related to that meeting are here. So I've blown it up a little bit. You can see that access to the chat. Any files that we used during the meeting can be found here. Meeting notes, if you take advantage of that feature. If you used the whiteboard, you have access to that. If the meeting was recorded, it shows up here, and you can just click on this and it will start playing the meeting back to you. All right, core apps. I'm doing pretty good. 2 minutes behind. All right, so we're going to take a deeper dive into OneNote, Planner, the Wiki, and the Whiteboard. So OneNote. People who know me know I talk about OneNote because I love it, and I really, most people I talk to either love it or hate it. Most people love it. So anyway, one of the reasons that we use OneNote is its unstructured content flow. So with Microsoft Word, you open up a new Word document and you start typing. It starts at the top and it goes down. Once you typed up a page or two, you can click wherever you want to edit that text, but you can't just click anywhere in a blank page in Word and start typing. It always takes you to the top. With OneNote, you can click wherever you want and start typing. So it's literally more like a notepad from that aspect. If you haven't heard me say this before, I've been using OneNote for 5 years. I do not have a notepad on my desktop anymore. I don't need it. I always have OneNote open, and that's where I go to put my notes. That's where I go to find stuff. OneNote allows for the easy inclusion of any content type. So text, that's basic typing. There's all kinds of rich formatting we can do on the text. You can put pictures in there. You can take video. So there are buttons within OneNote to start recording a video or audio. If you have a tablet or a Surface, you can use a pen and you can just draw or use your own handwriting. It does have handwriting recognition, so it'll convert your handwriting to text. And it has search. It also has history. So if you wanted to see what your OneNote page looked like a week ago, you can. If you needed to roll back a change, you can. So those aren't things the notepad on your desktop has. It's structured. So the highest level is notebook. And then within a notebook, you'll have multiple sections. Within a section, you can have multiple pages, and pages then can have subpages. As far as access is concerned, you have access to OneNote from any Teams channel. You have to add that, but it's because Teams is really SharePoint under the hood. Anytime you create a site in SharePoint, a OneNote notebook is created automatically. So when you go in Teams and you go to add a notebook, it'll show you the notebook it already created for that team. There's a desktop application. Now I use that for the most part exclusively because it's faster, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. And then you can use it across devices. I mentioned tablets. You can do it in the browser. The functionality is really not deprecated in the browser. You know, if you have ever worked in the browser with Excel, it does not have as many features as the desktop application of Excel does. OneNote, it's one-to-one. Everything seems to be there. And you can use it with your phone. I use that a lot, actually, many times for reference. On occasion, I will be somewhere and need to jot down a note, and I put it there. That way it doesn't get forgotten. So let me take a minute and show you this. Let's go here and here. So this is OneNote, the desktop application, but I'm going to show you properties, and we'll see that it's in this business control panel demo, which is actually a team. So sites means that it's SharePoint, business control panel demo 2 is a team, and then site assets is just the library where it's stored. So if I go to Teams, you'll see here's business control panel demo. So that's the team that it's displaying that notebook from. And then within here, I'll flip this open a minute so you can see there's a whole bunch of notebooks. So it's very easy for me to flip around from one notebook to another just by selecting it. And there's no wait for the browser to render experience. It just goes there because it's synchronizing again with the cloud. So there is the ability to create templates. So I don't have one set here, but if you go to click add new page, you can have it create a page in any format you want. So and like I said, you can click anywhere you want and start typing. So we click there, we click here. Let me go here, and I want to put a document in here. So let's go ahead and just drag a document in there. Do I want to insert a printout? If I do that, it'll display the entire document, or I can just attach the file. Now it's there. You can drag email into OneNote. Pretty much, like I said, any content types available. Under insert, here we have record audio, record video. You know, if there's something from YouTube, you could embed in here pictures. You can embed spreadsheets and Visio diagrams directly from OneNote. There's some math functionality in OneNote as well. Here's the history tab. So if I want to see page versions, yeah, here we go. So you can see that the first time this page was created was 4/18, and then I fiddled with it on the 15th, and now we're in here. Right now, I'll turn that off, and they go away. Let me see if I covered everything I wanted to cover. Well, so notebook, here's sections, and there's a page. If I want to create a subpage, it's as simple as clicking on it and making it a subpage, and now you see that visually you can tell that it's underneath GLX. Okay, let me see. What's next? All right, Planner. So there's another core app within Teams. You can use Planner outside of Teams, but it's been embedded pretty well now with Teams. So its purpose is it's easier than MS Project. So with Microsoft Project, it's almost a full-time job. With Planner, it's light project management, and it's good for most things. Yeah, we've been using Planner internally at TurtleWorks for about a year now. As far as its structure is concerned, highest level is a plan, and then within a plan we have buckets. Within buckets we have tasks, and a task will have subtasks, and the standard fields like assign to, comments, and start and end date. There's a couple tools. So there's Planner Hub, which gives you a look across all the plans in your organization, and then there's Mobile Planner, so you can get to it from your phone. So let's take a look at, let me do this. Drag here and get to Teams again. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just go here and go to Planner Hub. So you can get to Planner Hub through the browser, or you can get to it from here. So I'm looking at my tasks. So these are things that are assigned to me, and you can see there's a couple buckets that we have going on here. And under all, we can see every plan that's out there. which is pretty nice. And I'm going to go under projects, and I'm going to go under general, all projects, and I click on that, and it takes me to that particular plan. And now we'll see over on the left, I'm in the projects team, I'm in the general channel, and here is that planner application, and it's surfaced all of the tasks. Over here, we can click on this guy and it gets rid of some of that navigation on the left, so we have more real estate to work with. Created 3 buckets, so a staging, meaning it's basically hasn't been started yet. We're still figuring out who's going to work on it. It's in the consulting phase or it's in the QA phase. So let's dig into one of these tasks so you can see. There's its bucket. What's the progress? It's not started. It's priority. You can put a start time and a due date. We've got some notes that we can put here. These are subtasks. So it's an easy way to group tasks. You put attachments in there, which I did. I put a financial sample spreadsheet in there. And then the comments section is a running dialogue about the tasks and subtasks. So it's a great way for you to see what's going on with those particular tasks. We also have some labels over here, so we can take advantage of those to do some color coding related to particular tasks. All right. Let's get into wikis. So what's the purpose of a wiki? It's easier than creating a web page for content. So it's informational, really. It's structured informational content. It's good for communicating context related and structured content. It's like Wikipedia. So, you know, Wikipedia, anybody can go in there and fiddle with the contents. So that is true here, unless you lock it down. It's really great for reference. That's what it's for. So what's its structure? We have the wiki. A wiki has multiple pages. A page has multiple sections. And then we have links that we can create within a particular section so we can navigate among the wiki itself, or we can navigate to other web pages or web applications outside of the wiki. There is a mobile tool for the wiki as well. And I'm going to show you actually my wiki. So let's go here. All right. And let's go to Teams and General and Common and Common Applications. So I mentioned a wiki is a good place for onboarding. So that's exactly what we're doing with our wiki. So we use bookings for allowing people to schedule time on our calendars. So that's an Office 365 product that's free. So if you wanted to create a meeting with me, you know, I would just send you that link. And then you would be able to create a meeting in any open slots I have. I have a SharePoint site for all of my clients, so this is the root of that. So clicking here would take you to that. We use Minute 7 for tracking our time as we're consulting. If you want to use Outlook in the browser, you can here, and past webinars are linked here, so you can see that breakdown. So here's some common information, not much in here at this point, but some COVID related stuff. So this is a link to the Small Business Association of Michigan website, and this is just to get back to work safety guide. So that's how I'm leveraging wikis. To make changes, it's as simple as clicking within the section and I could start typing whatever I wanted. So that is how wikis work, how they're structured. And so whiteboards. One of the things we can do when we're in a conference room is we can get to a whiteboard and take some colored markers and start drawing, and a picture's worth 1,000 words sometimes. So Microsoft's given us a whiteboard within Teams. that whiteboard is saved as a meeting artifact. You can get to that whiteboard through Teams or through the whiteboard desktop application. The desk app is much richer experience at this point. Microsoft is working to bring the Teams experience up to date, but it's not there yet. So let's take a look at whiteboard. So we're going to go to chat and looking for this guy here. And here's whiteboard. So it's loading the whiteboard. Hi, you're about to join this whiteboard. You can see that it's still loading. So that's leftover stuff from a previous meeting. All you get in Teams is a couple of pencils and an eraser. Not that rich. I'm going to open it in the desktop application. This is still shared with everyone in the team, so they can still see it, interact with it, whatever, but it's no longer within inside of Teams. It's running as a standalone application, but you're collaborating. So other users would show up here. You can see I can invite someone if I want. So here we've got, different set of pencils, and we have a ruler. So that means that, if you're challenged, you don't have to be challenged. You can draw a straight line now, and to move that ruler around, it's just a matter of scrolling. We've got the eraser, so that does just what you think it would do. If I untick this, you'll see I've got text. So if I click that, I get this kind of experience. I can add a post-it, which is what I've done here. I can drop in a picture. I can take a picture. I can go get a picture, or either from a local library or from Bing. And then there's some other options here. I can create a note grid, a list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So much richer experience within the desktop application. But there's times when you just got to draw, right? And this is how you can do that within Teams. And all right, so here, mobile. What am I doing? I'm pretty close to being on track. There is a Teams app that runs on your phone. You can make calls from that Teams app. You can chat from that Teams app. You can start meetings from that app. You can have the meeting from within your phone. You don't need to be at a desktop. So that gives you some freedom. You can be moving about. It has a few limitations. External file sources are unavailable. So I talked about that clunky way of connecting your SharePoint to Teams. So if you try to bring some SharePoint document libraries within a Teams, you won't see them through the Teams app, the mobile app, but you will see any files that are integrated with SharePoint the right way. And then many other third-party apps aren't available, or the experience is a little clunky. But Planner, OneNote, and a few of the other, everything else seems to work. Power BI, all of those things just seem to work. So I have not done this today, so give me a second to do this. I'm gonna actually share my phone. There we go. So this is my phone. I go to Microsoft, I go to Teams, and there we go. So we're in this webinar. So this is, remember I talked about artifacts, all those artifacts will be here. Matter of fact, if I click here, yeah, chat details more. If I click more, I don't have any tabs, okay. So we can go back. Down here, we've got activity, chat, Teams, calendar, et cetera, et cetera. Let me take a peek at, yeah, let me do this. Okay. So Teams, let's go down to projects, general. So within here, you can see all of the posts back and forth between different members of that channel. We can look at the files that are here. If we go under more, we've got planner. So all projects, I believe, is a plan. Yep. So now we've got access to Planner right there off of our phone, as well as if I wanted to call somebody, I could just go here and call whatever. Now, I have Teams hooked up to allow me to actually use Teams as a phone. It's not very expensive to do that, but you can call other team members and use the Teams experience for making calls. Calendar is here, so I could join a meeting from my phone and have that meeting experience as well. So let's do. And all right, so guidance for creating teams and channels. You're going to get this slide deck. So this link takes you to so it's some kind of coffee shop video thing. It's entitled Coffee Shop, but it's about a 20-minute video on how to really structure teams and channels well. So it's a good reference. And then next steps. So if you like what you saw and there were some things that you wanted to do, but you still weren't sure, we have a Teams starter kit, and there's a link for that. It's $525. It gives you 5 hours of our time for guidance, training, and support, as well as we have some templates that we'll put in place for you. Or if we have a conversation and you have a need to apply your Office 365 or your Teams software to some problems within your company, but it's not straightforward, we can do a discovery, either a mini or a full, where we take the time to understand what your goals and pains are and really dig into your current processes and document that, flowchart that, interview people, observe, and that generates for us a bunch of solutions. They just surface from that process, and we can then give you some numbers on what it costs to make changes and what it's costing you today, so it makes it easy to move forward. So those are some options for you. My ask from you is that you share this link, and I'm going to put it in an email after this webinar, that you share this link of the recorded webinar with someone else who didn't make it today but would find this useful. So that is my ask from you today. There's some contact information for me, and now we're at Q&A. So do we have any?
There's been nothing in the chat.
Nothing in the chat. Okay. Well, does anybody want to ask any questions? You'll have to unmute yourself, but.
Hey, Joe, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I've been using Planner for a while, and I have it on use it for my engineering team. And in order to invite people outside my team on it, I've had to make them members of the team, so they are able to manipulate and change that plan. Is there a way to make it public, so I don't have to add those people, but they can see the plan, or make it so they can't manipulate the plan?
Is there a way to make it public? No, because it's part of a team. Mm-hmm. Those people have to be added as guests to that team. Okay. So yeah.
I can make them a guest rather than a member, so they can't alter it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
How do you access the desktop apps you mentioned? So the desktop apps I mentioned was OneNote, and what else did we look at? Well, there's the Teams desktop application. So those are all downloads. I'll say the simplest way, if you are an Office 365 subscriber, the easiest way to get those apps is to go to www.office.com, and you can then get to those apps in the browser here, or you click on this guy to install Office, and it will go through and install Office, but it doesn't install Teams. So if you click here and go to Teams, and we'll wait for this to render, down right here is where you can download the desktop app for Teams, and then you can work with the desktop application within Teams. OneNote will be installed with Office directly unless you have an IT department or managed service provider that likes to lock things down. So I've run across places where you don't have access to OneNote because it wasn't installed, and they don't want you to have access to OneNote because they don't understand it or they're afraid of it or whatever it is. But that's usually why you don't have OneNote. Or Teams will often be blocked because the network administrator didn't want to deal with Teams because they weren't ready to roll it out. So does that answer your question, Kelly? I hope it does. Can you merge two channels together manually? I don't know of any tool that will let you do it automatically. There is, I mean, if you had files, like I showed you how you can synchronize your files between your desktop, that would be one way you could easily copy a bunch of files over from one channel to another, is to sync both of those channels to your desktop and then just do a copy paste.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
This is Marco DeCapita. How you doing?
Hey, Marco, how are you?
Good, thanks. I really appreciate you doing this. This is phenomenal, and something we really needed to work on. I'd love to talk to you more about this offline. But I'm interested. I noticed that in the past, when we've changed a team name or a channel name, those weren't necessarily reflected in the folder name or structure in some places. I'm not sure if you can speak on that, or if that's been addressed or.
I don't know if it's been addressed. I'll tell you what normally goes on there. So I mentioned that Teams is really a different front end for SharePoint.
Yep.
And when you create objects in SharePoint, you have an internal and an external name. So the first thing you call something is what the internal name is and the external name is. When you go and rename it, the external name changes, but the internal name remains the same. So when it creates objects automatically, it's probably using the internal name, which is the original name.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? We got 1 minute left. Well, I appreciate this. This has been awesome. I'm glad you all attended. It sounds like some of you got some stuff out of it. My goal was to make sure that you were equipped with more information and some actionable items related to Teams. You know, if you've got some simple questions related to Teams, I'm available. Just, give me a shout. And, if we need to take a deeper dive, that's fine. But, if you need 15 minutes of my time, just give me a shout. All right. Well, you all have a good afternoon. Bye now.
Thank you,
Joe. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.